siyayiqinisa ibutho senza lokunye nje okuchiyetshiyeneyo okwenziwa izinyanga. Lanxa bethinta nje sizwe ingoma yethu le ethi kudala kwakungenje mhlaba uyaphenduka kwakukusumambo.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another beautiful morning on the African Portal Radio TV International. Today is Women's Rights Day, and we are having in the studio Barrister Adetunji Omotola with us right here, right now. We are going to be unpacked some things going on in our community and what is the women's rights really mean, especially to Africa. So join us this morning as we are going to be having a very lovely time with this great leader of our time. Barrister Adetunji Omotola, good morning to you, and how are you this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Dario Luso. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners for wherever they may be, from Africa to Europe to North America and Asia.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's quickly go to the business of the day. Let's look at today, a special day in South Africa history. Let's go back to the history. What's today is all about? Can you take us back to the line of history about today?
Yes. Today marks the 21st of March, 2026, a Saturday. It is the 66th anniversary of the Sharpeville massacre. Sharpeville is an area in Johannesburg, in Gauteng rather, and on that day, 69 South Africans were mowed down by the apartheid forces, the apartheid police. They were killed, and 180 were injured. And what was the reason for that? Well, they were marching, they were protesting peacefully against the draconian pass laws of the apartheid regime, which was very restrictive, oppressive, and humiliating. So after the first democratic elections, one man, one vote in 1994, that ushered in President Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela as the first Black president of South Africa, the March 21st was declared as a holiday and called Human Rights Day. So every 21st of March in South Africa, Human Rights Day is commemorated. Today is the 66th anniversary of that march and the killings of 69 South Africans.
All right, thank you. What is this day mean when we are talking about the youth of today? Can we have such a youth again that can stand their ground and face the reality of the time in this generation?
Well, first of all, we have to establish one thing. Now there's democracy in South Africa. A lot more young people now have rights to education, quality education. They can get jobs. They're good. Lots of big businesses in South Africa because of the democracy in South Africa. White, Black, Indians, and coloreds are working closely together. There is no area now in South Africa where a Black man cannot go and live there, except perhaps for Orania, where it's a small enclave of white supremacists. So all in all, I think that South Africa, 66 years after Sharpeville, has changed tremendously. South Africa is a G20 country, is a member of BRICS and the African Union, so it's not part of these international bodies. It has hosted the FIFA World Cup, and it recently hosted the G20. So South Africa has changed, and the youth today have so much more opportunities. They don't have to carry passes. They don't have to be kept in one area, a essentially Black area. But of course, the times also then were different. People were fighting a huge demon called apartheid, a very restrictive, oppressive, humiliating, and sadistic kind of system. But the youth today, of course, also are preoccupied with more mundane matters. Social media, people are really not as aggressive in pursuing things to its conclusion. But again, you can't compare one generation with another. But I say that South Africa is a better place to live in 66 years after Sharpeville, there can be no such occurrence again in South Africa. Yes, we've had Marikana, the shooting of miners in Marikana under a black government, but it was very unfortunate, and we saw the fallout of Marikana. It affected many people. Even the government was put under the microscope. So there you are. The youths today are doing better than the youths of those days. They were more hounded by the security forces, and they lived a life of almost slavery in the 50s and the 40s after apartheid was declared in 1948.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that information. I believe the youth connecting to this program will be able to be picking one or two information from this program right here, right now on the African Portal Radio TV International. So if you are joining, please, this program is live on our YouTube channel and also is also live on our Facebook. So please watch, share, like, let it go viral. And one of the best thing about this program is that it's a sensational program that is going to sensitize our community. Let's blow this beyond South African border. Let's look at Africa in a context. Can we say that we're really practicing the woman right in Africa? Especially when we are talking about the African Union, when we are talking about the African coming together. Are we really practicing it in its full context?
Well, first of all, I want to say one thing. There are different countries in Africa. There are many countries from different traditions. Portuguese Africa, French Africa, English Africa, Spanish Africa, and Arab Africa. And Arab Africa, some were colonized by the British, some were colonized by the French. So the experience in Algeria will be different from the experience in Egypt or Morocco. So Africa is not homogeneous, but what we do know is that there are many African countries that are poorly governed, and there are many African countries where the rule of law or respect for human rights is not taken very, very seriously. Look, the country that I come from, Nigeria, is a case in point. Every day, terrorists are kidnapping and killing Nigerians. That even motivated President Donald Trump of the United States to say, look, we're going into Nigeria because they're killing Nigerians, but in this case, he talked about Christians. And the United States Army has been launching airstrikes in some parts of Nigeria. That is a tragedy. Nigeria was independent, has been independent for over 60 years, but it cannot manage its own affairs. And so from a terrorism high in Nigeria, lack of respect for rule of law, very high in Nigeria, thuggery, very high in Nigeria, cultism, very high in Nigeria, brigandage, very high in Nigeria, authority stealing, very high, abuse of power, very high in Nigeria, nepotism. I'll give you an example. The president of the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is from the southwest of Nigeria, Yoruba. Now, Nigeria is typically ruled on a tripod basis. So you have the northern Hausa Fulani, 29%. You have the Yoruba southwest, Yoruba speaking, 21%, and you have the Igbos from the southeast, 18%. But when you look at President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's government, the commanding heights from the Inspector General of Police, the Supreme Court Justice or Chief Justice, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of State for Finance, the Minister of Communications, the Central Bank Governor, the Chief of Staff to the President, the EFCC chairman, the INEC chairman, the list is endless. He has put his own people there. That is pure abuse of power, nepotism, and lack of respect for the rule of law. Nigeria is based on unity in diversity, mobilizing people from all parts of the country. So African countries, and I use Nigeria as an example because Nigeria is the largest democracy in Africa, and Nigeria is the largest black nation on earth. So if Nigeria does not respect rule of law, In fact, let me quote the former Secretary General of the United Nations, the 7th Secretary General, Kofi Annan. And he said, there will be no sustainable development without peace and security, and there will be no peace and security without sustainable development. And this must be predicated on respect for the rule of law and human rights. So this was Kofi Annan. And when he was speaking about this, he was focusing on African countries. We've just seen recently in Congo, Brazzaville, the president of Congo, Brazzaville has just won re-election for the 10th time or so. And he got 95% of the votes. Denis Sassou Nguesso has been in power since 1979, with the exception of 4 years. He has been in presidency for over 40 years. We saw in Cameroon, Paul Biya, 92-year-old Paul Biya, has been re-elected for the 7th time. He's been in power since 1982. We've seen in Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has been elected again, maybe for the 10th time. He's been in power since 1986. Now, this is abuse. This is lack of respect for human rights. Because how can one man rule a country for 40 years? So the challenge for Africa is simple. When we say we're democratic, we must ensure that there's respect for the rule of law. There should be regular elections. They must be free and fair. There should be separation of powers between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And there must be checks and balances. So the legislature must check on the executive. It cannot be the legislature being a rubber stamp. And this is why it's difficult to have human rights in Africa, because everything is muddled up and people are abusing their office. And you saw recently the case of the Minister for Works in Nigeria, Engineer David Umahi, and one lady. And that didn't go very well. And I think it ended with the lady giving up on the case. They said she had received 110 million naira and she dropped the case and so on. So there's a lot of pressure on women. There's a lot of pressure on young people. Their rights are trampled upon either by the police. You remember the NSAS protests in Nigeria in 2020. NSAS, and they even killed so many people at the Lekki toll gate on October 20, 2020. And the government forces, and they even set up a commission of inquiry. But what happened afterwards? Some people were jailed. You remember recently, even young boys who were protesting under President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, I think that was last year or so, they were protesting. I think it was a year into his presidency. And they arrested young boys as young as 11. And they paraded them and said they were adults because they wanted to jail these young boys. So there isn't really a lot of respect for human rights in many countries in Africa. But in countries like Botswana, in countries like South Africa, in countries like Mauritius, in countries like Namibia, I don't think we hear a lot of violations of people's rights. In Uganda, there's some rights, there's even laws against gay people and so on, gay people. And I think in Tanzania, they stone albino. If you're an albino, I think in Tanzania, they stone you to death. And in Nigeria, even in Nigeria, there's discrimination against fellow Nigerians on the grounds that you are not from one state or you are not from a particular tribe. So these are the challenges. Those are abuse of people's rights. If you say, I'm not Yoruba or you are not Igbo, I can't give you a job in Anambra State because you are not Igbo, and I can't give you a job in Lagos because you are not Yoruba. These things are happening every day, and people never speak about it because they feel that is normal behavior. These are all examples of abuse of people's human rights.
All right. Thank you, Barrister Adetunji Omotola, for that. I really appreciate you going deep into that and mention what is happening within Africa. So, what is the solution to this? How do we need to bring a solution to all this problem you mentioned, especially within Africa, especially the countries that they were violating the woman rights? What is the solution? Who is going to step up and say, yes, this is the right thing, let's do the right thing? What do we need to do?
Well, look, they said equity in law, they say equity helps the vigilant. If you're not vigilant, the law will not help you. If you sit in your house, you're not going to know what's happening in Stanton or what's happening in Cape Town. You have to move around. So as a citizen, you must get a copy of the Constitution. Fortunately, the South African Constitution is like a small book. It's very nice and sexy. You can carry it around, can put it in your pocket, and it's quite voluminous. Get a copy of the Constitution, arm yourself with the Constitution, because it's the Constitution that guarantees your rights, your fundamental human rights. Familiarize yourself with the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Also ensure that you spend quality time with lawyers, because lawyers, what they do every day is to ensure that people's rights are enforced or not violated. Most people think that being a citizen is just to be eating fish and chips and watching Netflix and going to work and relaxing. Citizenship, especially in democracy, is about activism. You need to read up on the history of your country. You need to know those who are in different offices, especially those who are at the local government level, because when your rights are going to be violated at the lower level first, maybe the councillor, the local government chairman, the police officer, the judicial officer, somebody close to you, a boss, your employer, it will be somebody close to you that will be violating your rights in most cases. Because if people are remote from you, if somebody is in America, how do they violate my rights in Johannesburg? So people must begin to read more. You see, the more knowledge you have, the less likely you are to be a victim of abuse of your rights. Because where that happens, you're able to speak for yourself, or at least know the course of action you must take. Also, when people's rights are violated, they must call their lawyer first, especially if it's the police. You have a number of a lawyer. A lawyer is very important to have as a friend. Even if you can't afford one, cultivate having lawyers as your friends. It's nice to have lawyers as your friends, because when you have a problem, they'll jump on it without asking you for money. For example, I'm a lawyer and I have a lot of lawyer friends. You can imagine if I have somebody violating my rights, I will probably have about 100 lawyers who will follow me to court. So become a friend to lawyers, read the law, and always know that if you don't exercise your rights, then your rights can easily be violated. And above all, make sure that you read a lot about the country in which you live in, especially around the judicial system, the criminal justice system, how the courts work, how the prisons work, and the process of administration of justice from when an accused person is brought to court to when they're sentenced, and maybe, whether they get bail or they don't get bail. People should familiarize themselves with the criminal justice system. Don't be a spectator in your own lifetime.
Wow. Don't be an spectator in your own lifetime. Barrister Adetunji Omotola, thank you very much. Let's quickly look into some issue happening within the country South Africa between the foreigners and the South Africans. What is your take on this? And is there any way maybe the foreigners are violating the rights of the citizen, or the citizen is violating the right of the foreigners? What's your view on this?
Well, look, South Africa, first of all, I want to commend South Africans for their warm hospitality, for the spirit of Ubuntu that they have shown to us. Many of us love this country. We love the history, even though some of it is troubled. We love the beauty of this country, the diversity, the infrastructure, the good food, the music, whether it's Kwaito We just love this country. It's such a beautiful place to be, and the people are beautiful. But of course, South Africa has a long history of having migrant workers, whether it's in the mines and so on. People have been coming here since the gold rush. So it's not that South Africans are not new to foreigners, especially those who are from the neighboring countries, Mozambique, Lesotho, Swaziland, and so on, even Zimbabwe. But I think what South Africans are concerned about is the volume of migrants, especially those who are undocumented, particularly those who are committing crime. Now, this is the area where there's running battles between, in fact, organizations have sprung up, put South Africans first, Operation Dudula, and so on, March to March. So many organizations, even political parties have come to power on the basis of anti-foreign sentiments. The parties like the Patriotic Alliance, whose leader is the Minister of Sports. They've managed to get power by singing the anti-foreign rhetoric. But look, I think what I will advise foreigners in South Africa to do, and I say it every day, get legal or get out. Get legal or get out. Get legal or get out. And the reason is simple. If somebody comes to your house without an invitation, and when they are inside your house, they proceed to take your Woolies chicken. I don't know if you buy chicken from Woolies, but the best grilled chicken from the shops for us seems to be Woolies. We've identified Woolies chicken, and I'm happy to promote Woolies chicken. Now, can you imagine somebody comes in through your window and then they grab your Woolies chicken, and then you find them maybe in the garage about to steal your son's bicycle? How are you going to treat them? They come in through the window. They're not invited, and they're in your house and stealing your food and stealing your children's toys. How are you going to treat them? So those who are committing crime, foreigners, undocumented, committing crime, just know that you're breaking the law. And when South Africans get violent, it's difficult for us to be able to speak. But if you're here legally and you're law-abiding, like for example, the e-hailing driver that was killed, Isaac David Dasher, that was killed in Pretoria, his body was found in Pelindaba, I think, somewhere, or Attridgeville. Now that chap, that young boy, you saw the outrage that South Africans showed towards the killing of Isaac David Dasher, the e-hailing driver, because he was a student, he was law-abiding, he was working, and he was murdered. So I think people should get their papers or get out. And I'm not saying get out as in get out immediately. I'm saying prepare to leave and come back again, because this illegal migrant issue, if you remember the case of in the United States, there was an illegal migrant, I think from Colombia or one of these countries, and he proceeded to go and kill an American citizen who was sleeping outside. They were sleeping rough outside. You know, in Europe and America, people sleep outside when they're homeless. And this guy went and killed that lady and stabbed her to death and killed her. So sometimes these criminals who are illegal are the ones who spoil it for the migrants who are legal, but who are not criminals. So I think a fundamental issue to address that will reduce the temperature in the room is for many migrants to challenge the Home Affairs legally. There are many migrants who are law-abiding, who have applied to Home Affairs for their papers, and Home Affairs is dragging its feet. And on many occasions, when they come with a result or a response, they decline your application on flimsy grounds, like we can't find your husband or things like we can't find your wife. That is not good enough. So I think the Home Affairs needs to be challenged legally, but above all, I think those who are here in South Africa illegally should proceed quickly to get legal or get out. And when I say get out, not immediately. I don't want to use mild words anymore. Immigration is such a hot topic in the world right now, that those who are illegal in a country, so long as you have a country of origin, you shouldn't despair unless your country is at war. If your country is at war or you're being persecuted back home, then there's no need for you to go. But if it's because your country things are tough, food is hard to find, or jobs, you won't die. You will survive in your country. Most people are still living in their countries. If you look at the population of people who have escaped from their country to another country, and I use the word escaped deliberately, we have managed to escape from our countries, and we're safe where we are. If you look at the population of those who have escaped from their countries, either refugee, economic refugee, whatever, they are fewer in number than those who are back home. So Nigeria, population 200 and something million. How many Nigerians are living abroad? 17 million, not even up to 10%. But guess what? The remittances from the Nigerians living abroad is equal to the Nigerian budget. So that tells you the wealth outside, because those outside are earning good salary. In America, in Russia, in Germany, in Ireland, in UK, in South Africa, Nigerians earn far more than what they will earn if they were to be in Nigeria doing the same job. A very good example is the academia. If you're a professor in Nigeria, I'm hearing now that lecturers are sleeping in their office and bathing in the office. They can't afford to pay accommodation because they go and ask you to bring 10 million, 5 million, 20 million. So Nigeria must begin to provide leadership in Africa, particularly on the issue of immigration. No Nigerian should be a refugee anywhere in the world, and more so in Africa. When you see a Nigerian who is a refugee or illegal in an African country, you know that Nigerian leadership has failed dismally. They're a bunch of total failures, and they are reactionaries. Because if you're not reactionary, how can you have a country without ambassadors for 3 years? And then when there's a problem, you quickly rush and put ambassador there, and most of them are not even fit for purpose. They're not fit for the jobs that they were nominated for. But anyway, that's a matter for another day. We'll discuss Nigeria another day.
Don't let us dwell so much in that. Let's quickly go into, because this will be the last two questions, then we out of your way for today. The next time when we are bringing you back is going to be another discussion, because we want to focus on migration and we also want to focus on our food. I remember 2 years ago or 1 year ago, we have the Jollof War, which is one of the things that I believe that we need to go back to it and start promoting the Nigerian food, African food and all that. But let's look at the tradition. Let's look at our culture. Let's look at our customs. Let's look at Africa. I mean, within South Africa, is there any way the culture, culturally, we are violating the right of other, or is there any way the South African cultural lifestyle is violating the right of the foreigners?
Look, I think, as I said before, when I come to your house through the window and proceed to steal your Woolies chicken, and then move on to steal your son's bicycle, you will not be pleased to see me, right? Foreigners must be, especially those from Africa, we have to try as much as possible to be here legally. South Africa is going through a lot of challenges of its own. High unemployment, high crime, high domestic violence or gender-based violence. There's a lot of social ills, teenage pregnancies, and class divide. There's a high level of inequality in this country. Township and suburbs, massive gap. So when people have problems, if somebody has 10 children, I don't think you're going to send your own child to go and spend holidays with them if they have 10 children. South Africans are going through a lot of challenges. Low growth is only about 1%. There's a lot of corruption. You can see the Madlanga Commission, the other committee into the police, corruption in the police, cahoots with criminals. Now, these are the things that foreign nationals must be aware of and adapt to. This is not the South Africa of 2010 when we were all excited about the World Cup, or the South Africa during Thabo Mbeki's era, when everything, the rand was about $1 to $6 to $1. when flights were so cheap. With 70,000 naira, you could fly to Lagos and back. People were coming here for the weekend. People were in Moloko nightclub. Everybody had a South African friend because they were coming here regularly. They were going to Cape Town, buying properties in Cape Town. Things were pumping. All the hotels were filled up, even before COVID. But things have changed. So what foreign nationals must do, get their papers, stay away from crime, also hold each other accountable. In our community, we never call out criminals. We are afraid of criminals. Sometimes we are cozy with them because we find each other in the same places sometimes. If we go for Nigerian Independence Day, or you go for 1 or 2 interventions, maybe a church or a community event or a birthday or whatever, because we're all from the same country and you don't know what people do at night or in their houses. So you can find yourself sitting next to somebody who's not so kosher. So I think we need to start calling out the criminals in our midst. It's very important. Look, fortune favors the brave, and cowards die many times before their death, and the valiant do taste of death but once. But the evil that men do lives after them. But I say that the evil that men do lives with them. When we have criminals in our communities, we need to call them out. We need to challenge them to stay on the straight and narrow, because the perception about foreigners that we are criminals is the worry that I have. And then in our communities, we don't even challenge the criminals that we know they exist. And what we tend to do is to sweep it under the carpet or defend and say, not all Nigerians are criminals. Well, hello, if you have Boko Haram and you have fraudsters and you have a few drug dealers, then that already covers for even those who are not committing any crime. If you have 5 children and 1 is an armed robber, that's enough to cover. They can just say the family, they're all crooks. You don't need all your children to be armed robbers for the name to be stayed. So Nigerians, Ghanaians, Zimbabweans, we must be more determined to fight crime in our community. Failure to fight crime in our community ends us the bad image. And we also must have a spokesperson that speaks. When there's this issue of this East London matter, this painful matter of the installation of a king, I think it's a very painful matter because it distracts us from serious issues. It distracts us from talking about immigration and jobs and business and Jollof wars. It distracts from people wanting to be part of Jollof wars. You see? So there we are.
All right. Before I let you out of my way, I know it's Women Right Day, and I'm using this time to celebrate this special day with all South Africans, both within and abroad. Happy Women's Day to all South Africans within South Africa and outside South Africa. Let's look at what is going on right now in the world, the American-Israel-Iran war. What is your view about it? And in what way any of the country violating the woman right? I just wanted to spend a few minutes on that because we just have about 3 minutes to round up this section.
Okay,
Please.
Look, first of all, I am disappointed that President Donald Trump allowed himself to be hoodwinked by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel to go and attack Iran unprovoked. They were in the middle of negotiations with the United States, with Vitkov and the president's son-in-law, and boom, they start bombing them. Boom, they kill their leaders. Boom, they're bombing everything. They're cleaning out their navy, their army, their air force, their drone manufacturing. Everything is being wiped out. Now, for me, that is a total unprovoked act of aggression. It's against international law. It's against equity, natural justice, good conscience. It is totally wrong to do that. Yes, Iran may be on their way to have nuclear capacity, but only last year in June, they bombed Isfahan and they bombed all the other places where they said those were the nuclear sites. Now here we are again in the middle of negotiations. You're having a conversation with me, arbitrating. At the same time, you're sending people to come and attack me as I leave the room. This is totally unacceptable. Now, on the part of Iran, of course, they are fighting a war of attrition. Their back is against the wall. And you know, they say in war, all is fair. So what they've said is, look, American bases are in the region and they're going to go after those bases. Of course, they've widened it to airports and other installations, but I think it's the only defense, apart from the Strait of Hormuz, is the only last joker, if you like, that Iran can use. Because if somebody is beating you up and you know that they want to kill you, if you find a knife, if they are using their fist to beat you up, if you find a knife or a hammer, and you can see that even though they're using their fists, they're going to kill you. If you see a hammer or a sword or a knife, I'm sure you grab it and try and defend yourself from being killed. That's what I think Iran is doing. It's a very unfortunate war, very costly economically, very costly from humans. Over 1,000 Iranians have been killed. Israeli, the death toll is rising. Bahrainis have been killed. I think the Saudis have been killed. American servicemen have been sent back home in body bags, and it's very painful to watch the war unfold in real time. And it looks like a movie, but it doesn't end. Movies do end. This is not ending. And the longer it continues, I think we should speak up more. I haven't seen any African leader, perhaps except the South African leader, that's spoken against the war vehemently. We must speak up. We're part of the world. When the war widens up, I know a lot of Africans like to go to Dubai, Saudi Arabia for the Hajj and so on. We must also speak. We're part of this world. We can't just keep quiet, because in the end, it can be us next. When they finish with Iran, it can be Nigeria next, or Ghana, or whatever. If you don't listen to them, they can come in. So we must speak up.
All right. Thank you. Can we call this Third World War, or it's not up to that?
Well, it's technically, it's not, look, it's not a Third World War because Russia is not involved. China is not involved. If you look at how you know a Third World War, is when you see two countries in the Security Council. There are 5 countries there: Britain, Germany, China, France, and the US. If none of those 2 countries are facing each other in a fight, even if they're doing what they're doing in Ukraine, Ukraine is a proxy war between the West and Russia. But the West and Russia is not the world. We have China is not involved. India is not involved. Nigeria is not. The countries with the biggest populations are not involved in that war in Ukraine. So nothing World War. If it was World War, a few bombs would have landed in maybe Cairo, another in Brazil, a few in Manila. They're only in one region. If I one country, they're destroying only one country. The rest are just getting collateral damage. It's nowhere near a world war.
All right. Thank you for that clarity. And before I let you out of my way, as you are celebrating Women's Rights Day South Africa today, your golden advice to the youth of today and your advice to the leader in 1 minute.
The youth should grab it. The opportunities are there. When we were young, there was no internet, there was no cell phone, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Instagram, there was no TikTok, there was no LinkedIn, there was nothing, not even cable TV. Grab it and work very hard. And don't listen to the naysayers. People say you can't do it. Even if it's your relatives, just smile like Barack Obama. As for the leaders, lead like Mandela. Stop being selfish and greedy. Instead of buying cars and jets, build hospitals and build libraries, because that's the legacy. Write books. Instead of buying expensive alcohol all the time, write a book. Tell your own story. Let us know who you are, your family, your history. Together we can. Happy Human Rights Day. Siyabulela.
Thank you very much, Barrister Adetunji Omotola, for that beautiful presentation. I really appreciate it, and I believe the next time I call you, you will be happy to be here again to have the conversation with the African Porter. This is the voice of the Africa. This is African Porter Radio TV.
Siyabulela.
Thank you so much.
Siyabulela.
Go to our YouTube channel, please share this program, and at the same time, subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a very beautiful weekend, and God bless you.
God bless your family. God bless you and your family. Keep working. Keep pushing.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharp, sharp. Thank you. God bless you.
kule history nje lokhu ifakwa khona phana ekutheni uDakamela ngobunyanga bakhe ngobuqhawe bakhe wayekhokhela futhi ibutho lebabambene labelalwayo izimpi leziyana but bathi wadlala indima enkulu eChangani phana wadlala indima enkulu ekuthini inkosi loBhengula sehlaselwa ngamabhunu